Okay, so this is a Corvair transaxle. This is the power glide transmission, 2-speed power glide. This is the differential unit, and it has, this one is 327 gear. I've cleaned most of the gunk off, but I still have a little bit of gunk to clean off of it. That's what this plastic is, it's just keeping the water out. I have to replace this torque converter seal. I have to replace these side axle seals and the O-ring that's in here around these adjusters. I have a new one of these. I have a new governor O-ring to replace that. New pan gasket. New top cover gasket. And I think that pretty much covers. Oh, and I have a new power glide O-ring for there. The speedometer gear is fine. So I'm going to split this, and I'm going to take replace the gasket that's in the center. And that should be pretty much a reseal on this thing. I don't think there's anything else left. I'm probably going to paint this diff while I'm at it. It's a very careful procedure on how to replace these O-rings. So I will show you that. I have a tool for it. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward, but it's a necessary process to make sure that everything is the way it should be, and that I have everything cleaned out and new fluid inside, and it's not going to leak. So here you can see I'm loosening the last of the bolts connecting the differential to the trans, and I'm removing the governor to replace the O-ring on it. Now with all the fasteners removed, all that's left is to split the differential from the transmission. Just slide the intermediate shaft back and juggle around to try and get the differential off and side safely. Now I need to remove the fasteners holding down the top cover bolt and get ready to clean off that gasket surface and replace the gasket, and hopefully not find a gigantic ball of rust inside the differential. With no gigantic balls of rust or no big metal parts, I'm good to go. Now for the most critical part of it, replacing the O-rings around the differential bearing adjuster sleeves. See, I'm staking it, match marking the location of the orientation of the adjuster. I have the tool from Clark's Corvair for moving these adjusters out, and I loosen them out one turn at a time, and I mark my turns on a piece of cardboard so I know where I'm at. Find that 5 turns is the right number to be able to access the O-ring. If you loosen it much more than that, or take this right out, your bearing will fall out inside the differential, and then you're into pretty much a complete differential overhaul. This can be done with the differential still installed in the car, but once again you have to be very careful that you do not completely remove the adjuster sleeve, because if you do, the bearing will fall out and you are in a lot of trouble, so you'll have to be into a full powertrain removal at that point. See, I'm putting a little bit of lubricant on the new O-ring I've cleaned the recess. I'm sliding the O-ring around and then making sure it's nice and equally seated all the way around and not protruding out anywhere. And then I can start on the process of winding it back in. This needs to be done one turn at a time and marking off on my piece of cardboard to indicate where I'm at so I don't lose count of the turns, because this determines the bearing preload on the internals of the differential. When the O-ring installation process is complete, you install the locking tab that holds the bearing adjuster in place, and you carry on to the axle seal. With the standard seal puller, I just pop that seal out, no issues at all. And I clean out the area where the seal is going to go for any grease, paint, or debris that might be in there from the previous seal. Apply a little bit of engine assembly lube on the outside of the seal, slide that into place, and then I gently tap with the hammer to try and get it in place. This is a little bit of an awkward thing. You have to go around it several times to try and make sure it's in straight. Remember, we are tapping this gently to not distort or damage the seal, and once the seal is completely installed, you will hear a difference in the sound of the hammer as the hammer is contacting the differential adjuster sleeve. Now it's time to remove the retainer and remove the speedometer drive gear. There's an O-ring in there that we need to replace. The speedometer drive gear removed, I do a visual inspection on the plastic drive gear and make sure that there's no teeth missing or excessive wear. I remove the old O-ring and clean the recess where the O-ring goes. And then I will lube the new O-ring and prep it for install. Installing the drive gear should take no effort. It doesn't really take a lot of force. It just should pop right in. If there's resistance, then you definitely are not installing it correctly. You can see here that I slid it in too far and had to access through the top to push it back out with a screwdriver. And then once I got it in place, the locking tab fits and I can install the bolt and it's locked back in place. Now I'm on to the torque converter seal, and you can see that I'm using my standard seal puller. I'm just working my way around the seal, trying to loosen it up and free it out of the housing without marring the surface the seal rests on. I'm gently tapping with my hammer and popping the seal out. Seal removed, I give the seal surface a quick wipe and clean to look for any debris. Check the seal for the same size, add some lube, and get ready to install. Now with a piece of brass and a hammer, you can see that I gently tap the seal into place. Once the seal is level with the surface, I will hear the sound change on the brass hitting the differential. I can tell that it's seated correctly. Top off the differential, now is a good time to add some bulk ADW90 gear oil. The final top-ups will take place later. Now I carefully remove the strap that I have securing the differential to the lift table, and I get ready to install the cover. Now with a fresh cork gasket, I install the cover. Throw the bolts in, just finger tight for now, re-secure with my strap. The correct torque values for this and every other torque on your Corvair can be found in the manufacturer's manual near the back of the book. Now with the differential complete, it's on to the transmission. You can see I have the transmission pan cleaned, and I'm installing the transmission pan gasket. Again, be sure to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for torque specs. Okay, you can see me using the incorrect wrench to remove and reinstall the vacuum modulator. Clark's Corvair does sell the correct wrench for this, and if you are installing this while this is in the car, it's absolutely necessary. I'm going to replace the O-ring on the governor, remove the old one, install the new one, and then I test fit it in place to make sure it's all going to go in before I mate the diff and trans. See that I have the paper gasket installed, and I have a block of wood under the differential because I find with the differential elevated, it does help to mate the two. I'm rotating the shaft every time I push forward, and I'm careful to make sure that the gasket is aligned properly. That I don't really have the gasket aligned properly yet, so I'm going to have to pop the diff back out a little bit, adjust the gasket, and push it back in forward with something holding it in place. So I'm throwing in the bolts loose to align the gasket correctly. Now with everything aligned correctly, I can pop in the governor and install it. It just pops into place, and once again, if there's any resistance at all, then it's not installed correctly. It should just pop right in, and then you can align the bolt to hold the tab that holds the governor in place. With the final torque on the differential to the transmission, we have now completed the reseal of my differential and transmission for my '64 SeaCan Coupe, my car that was in a storage container for better than 30 years. Thanks for watching, thanks for checking out my content. Please check out my other videos on this project and some of my others. And like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff that I'm supposed to ask you to do. Please feel free to leave a comment, and I hope you enjoy the content. Thank you.